Good morning and happy Monday, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining today. So far, the market is looking pretty good. There's not any crazy movement, but the market is definitely trending up. As we have Sean saying, Big Daddy has been reinstated. So Powell will have a second term. That was kind of up in the air for, I think, a couple months now. So it's 100% official. Powell will have his second term, and the market definitely likes that. Tom pointed out that bank stocks are really running off of this news. So looks like we're having a good start to the week so far.
Yeah, we are. And like you said, banks are doing very well. Bank of America's up. We have JP Morgan running this morning. Honestly, there's not too much movement. Tesla has had some pretty nice movement to the upside. But besides Tesla and some of the growth stocks like PLUG that gapped up very slightly, it seems like the banks are the biggest movers today in pre-market. Of course, we have the pre-market scanner here that I can go ahead and refresh for us. So we can see there's not too much big stocks moving. FSLR is up 4%, which might be pretty interesting for everybody. I know they're kind of like a plug. So definitely keep your eye on FSLR. I think they're going to be pretty big heading into today. But my main thing I'm watching, Mike, are the banks. Like we have Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Bank of America. Almost all of them are running back up this morning.
Gotcha. There we go. Tom, one other stock that I was watching is I saw on CNBC that ticker symbol ASTR, which is a space company, is actually up big time. I believe that they completed one of their launches over the weekend. I don't really follow this one too much, but it's definitely up a big amount, and I feel like we should keep it on our watch list.
Yeah, definitely. I think it looks like a pretty nice play for today. I know people have been looking at ASTR a lot. Look at them on the daily. You can see how much this gapped up. We're honestly right at the resistance that we hit all the way back in August. So definitely throw it on the radar. I feel like that with this successful launch, they could get some pretty good momentum. I know SPCE has ran a lot on its launches in the past, and I feel like ASTR might even be a little bit better of a space company. So definitely watch it. I feel like they're going to be some pretty big players over the next 3 months.
Alrighty, there we go. So, how is I know that we had a ton of great movement with Nvidia last week. This week, it looks like it actually broke another all-time high. I feel like Nvidia is in a tough place right now because it's so, I don't want to say overbought, but it basically is overbought, especially on the daily chart. But at the same time, it's hard to bet against this one. So I was just curious to see what you thought of Nvidia for I don't know, Tom, maybe the rest of the week.
For the rest of this week, I'm honestly going to be pretty mixed on it. I will say I'm leaning more to the upside than I am the downside, just given everything that's been going on with these big tech stocks lately, especially with the metaverse and everything. I feel like a lot of stocks have had a lot of good momentum. Now I'm leaning more to the upside, but I feel like that we might go up for a few days and then hit a resistance, then end up coming down. I'm definitely going to be looking for it to keep going, though. It looks like today there's definitely a lot of momentum. I honestly liked last week on Friday how Nvidia started to break out up above that 328 resistance. I thought that was a pretty nice break right there. And I feel like that with that breaking, I feel like we could end up running for just a couple more days. But I'm definitely looking for it to hit a resistance and come down maybe later in the week. But it's just like you said, it's just hard to bet against it. It's starting to break out. And what I'm looking at is on the daily, Mike, it almost looks like a little bit of a bullish flag setup. There was a little bit of a flag whenever we consolidated, and now we're starting to finally break out. And I feel like that with the breakout, we might move. But like you said, it's very hard to bet against this one.
Gotcha. How about we take a look at PayPal really quickly? This thing is just getting destroyed.
Man, this is actually very unfortunate to see here. They broke that huge $200 support. They keep going down all the way down to 190 now. I actually have to go to the max daily chart to even be able to go back far enough to see some good supports for this one. So yeah, it looks like the next big support I'm seeing is right around 185. So that might be pretty big as we start to fall this week. But man, I could see this one keep going down, Mike. I mean, I want to see them turn around, but they're just on a terrible downtrend, at least for the short term. I feel like they might hit a support and go back up over the next few months. But, for this week, I'd be pretty careful with PayPal.
All right, there we go. All right, so I just want to welcome everyone to the stream. Thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome Alex, Vicky, Sean, Mac, Iranical, Bill, Hunter, Corbin, and Spacely. You guys know the drill. Just let us know what stocks you're watching. We'll definitely take a look at them. So far this morning, we have a couple stocks moving, like Tom scrolling through the ASTR article, which ASTR is up around like 32%, which is pretty good. Some other stocks that are moving are BLNK to the downside. But Tom, NEO to the upside. Take a look at this one.
Wow, I'm actually really happy to see this with NEO. I know that it's been a long time since they've been having this nice explosive movement. I'm so glad to see them back up. And, I felt like they were at 37.50 just a few days ago. And now we're already saying that they're back up to $41. Like, this is insane how they go down and then recover back up like this. Looking at them on the yearly, I really hope that they can get up and start to break some of these resistances, like the one at 44.50. I think that's going to be a huge one. We got rejected there multiple times in the past. And man, I've been waiting for NEO to go up. So I really hope that we start to go back on the uptrend. Unfortunately, they just haven't been doing anything lately. Like, we've been seeing Tesla, LCID, other stocks like that really starting to run. And NEO has just been lagging behind pretty drastically. So hopefully they start to get some good news and maybe some good sales numbers, and then they'll get some nice momentum back.
Yeah, it looks like they're really running up today on news that they are set to take orders for their electric sedan starting in January, and that's the ET7 electric sedan. So it's pretty good news. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Tom, it's been a while since we saw this one like actually go on like a strong uptrend.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I feel like they've just been lagging behind in the news categories, just about everything. It just has not been good for them in the short term. I actually have a picture, Mike, of that sedan, so let's go ahead and check that out. This is going to be NEO's new sedan coming out. I'll tell you what, these new electric cars like Lucid's Air and this NEO sedan, they're starting to look pretty nice. I mean, I'll be honest, I could start to get behind some of these electric car designs. So they're looking pretty cool, and hopefully it helps NEO's stock, which it looks like it's doing already.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm just trying to see what else we have moving. Looks like with the first comment, we have Corbin saying, I'm holding Snap, DraftKings, and Palantir shares, and I have a Tilray call for January 2021 for $20. I'm just holding and watching this week. I might scalp if I see an opportunity. Yeah, that's the way to go sometimes. Like, if you're just in some solid share positions, if you see like a short-term opportunity, that's awesome. But if you don't, it is what it is. But looking at Tilray, it looks like they're kind of just like holding its ground. They're kind of like holding their ground, Tom. Like, I know they were looking so good like a week ago or like 2 weeks ago, and they just they've been in a rough downtrend lately.
Yeah, they have, and just like you said, they've been in a really bad downtrend. So one thing I just want to remind everybody is, they've been going down for a long time, and they've been going, on this very strange downtrend. Just don't expect them to just fly up out of nowhere super fast. It might take a little while of consolidation, like we're starting to see here. It looks like it's going to be pretty volatile, going up and down quite a bit. So be a little careful. There's definitely a big resistance up there, right around $14 even, that we're failing to break out above. And I'm definitely going to be waiting for Tilray to do that. And like you said, Mike, last week or a couple weeks ago, it was looking so nice. I thought maybe these marijuana stocks would finally start to get some good momentum, but they hit that resistance and just came right back.
Very interesting. All right. And then we have Manny saying, I'm in MS calls. So, Tom, I know these bank stocks were looking pretty good after Powell's announcement. What do you think of MS?
I'll be honest, it looks pretty good to me. It looks like it's still running up. If we look at it on the 1 year daily, the daily doesn't look the best, but I will say the intraday looks a lot better. I'm glad to see 2 green candles on the daily. My only concern has just been that it's just slowly been consolidating / selling off to the downside ever so slightly. I feel like some other banks like Bank of America and JP Morgan were starting to really turn over there, and then they came right back. I feel like Morgan Stanley has done pretty well, and I feel like that with Powell being reinstated, if they could start to break up above some of these resistances, I'm seeing a pretty big one here, right at $100 even. I would say if we could get back above that, I think MS could have some pretty decent moves over the next week, until the end of this week, I should say.
Sounds good. And then like another group of stocks I wanted to look at was LVS and then Win. They're looking pretty good this morning. I read an article saying that they were like starting to pop up because I think the border between, I think it was like mainland China and then Hong Kong or something like that is set to reopen soon, and then that should bring in more visitors to Win and LVS's China location. So it was something along the lines of that. So that is pretty good news overall, though. But like Win and LVS have just been basically doing nothing but downtrend all year. So these ones like aren't too bad for like a dip buying shares, in my opinion.
Yeah, me either. I feel like if you grab shares of LVS around, 40 or $41, I feel like that's a pretty good way to go. With Win, I feel like as long as you're grabbing them like under 95, I think that's also pretty good. And, that's great news with China. I know that China's been really affecting these two stocks, Mike. Like, I know that Win and LVS have been getting beaten down a lot over the past year, but some of the American companies like MGM has been doing great, just running up the new highs and just doing very well. So I'm really glad to see LVS doing better. I think that the China news will obviously help them. And, they just needed some good news to kind of turn back around. And I really hope that this is all they needed. And looking at it for the long term, Mike, with LVS, if they're able to break above some of these resistances, like if they could break out above $45, I mean, man, I could see them recovering up pretty well back up towards 50 and maybe even 55 over the next couple of years or even like 6 months or so.
You know it. So I'm just looking at a couple other stocks, and Tom, actually, AMC and GameStop are looking decent today. Of course, it's not amazing, but they are holding their ground.
Yeah, they are. Look at AMC on the daily. I kind of pointed this one out last week, and I'm not a big AMC player. Like, I almost never play them, but in the end, they're breaking above this technical, which is nice to see. They're breaking out of this trend line here. And then what I really like is that they're also bouncing off that $40 support at the same time. So if they can hold $40 and then they start to move up out of this like trend area, I feel like it could be amazing for AMC. They've been consolidating for a long time. It's been, what has it been now, Mike? Like 6 or 7 months of just straight consolidation almost. And I feel like that we could end up getting a pretty nice pop. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go back up to all-time highs. I think we might be able to hit $50 with the way that we broke out of the technical, but keep in mind, it's just, it's holding support and we have to see the breakout. I wouldn't just buy it in anticipation of anything like this. AMC is going to be very hard to trade and anything can come out with some weird news or anything like that. So always keep that in mind. But I feel like the technicals are lining up pretty well to the upside given everything we're seeing.
Yeah, not bad. I'm just really, really surprised with how well it's holding its ground. Like, for what, like the past 6 or 7 months or whatever you said. Like, I'm just very surprised that like it's been in this like $40 to like $50 range for such a long time. Like, I don't know, it's very surprising, and I'm very excited to see like how AMC will do over like the next year.
Yeah, me too. And I know that their earnings reports are going to be coming out again. And this last one actually wasn't too bad. So like whenever we look at the earnings compared to the past and stuff, it looks like it's getting slightly better. So hopefully AMC just keeps getting a little better, and hopefully Wall Street Bets gets back behind him, Mike. Like we keep talking about Wall Street Bets, they keep getting behind all these other stocks. I know Lucid's been a big one lately for them, and obviously any of the stocks that are moving a lot. But if they could just focus their attention back in on AMC, I feel like that could get a huge pop again. But it's going to take the whole collective effort. Like we're going to have to see a lot of people getting in, not just 10% of them like what we're seeing now.
Exactly. And then another stock, Tom, that's exploding is Enphase. It's more of like a day by day explosion, you can say, rather than just like one like 20% up day. But looking at Enphase, they basically break all-time highs every single day. They're a solid solar company. They're one of my favorite plays for the long term, but they're definitely exploding, so I figured I'd definitely mention them.
Yeah, them and FSLR are on fire. I'm really glad to see Enphase running like this, Mike. And I'll be honest with you, I know that you might not want to hear this, but it kind of reminds me of UPST exactly almost. It's man, it's breaking out of that high and it's starting to go. And honestly, if we look at UPST, you can see right around my cursor here back at the beginning of September, you can see they started to really break out and have these nice candles. And I really feel like the end phase is in that same exact spot right now. They're starting to get that nice breakout with some of these bigger candles. So I feel like it could be great for some momentum plays or even for like a shorter term swing, but definitely be careful of it coming down eventually. I hope it does a UPST, Mike, and just go straight up for like 3 months. That would be awesome.
Yeah, like the UPST, like there's pros and cons to it because like at first you're like, I don't know if you're gonna like this, but at the end of the day, maybe this stock can double or so in a couple months. But then I just gotta watch out for that. I guess you can say death drop.
Yeah, look at this. Look how UPST just had that big drop out of nowhere. And it takes a long time for it to happen sometimes. But as UPST was going up, Mike, we kept talking about it. Eventually this one's going to come crashing down, and here it comes. So it'll definitely happen. I feel like end phase will probably have some type of downwards movement eventually. But man, hopefully they get up above 300 first. I think that would be awesome. And I'll be honest, they have a lot of momentum, and it looks like a pretty decent setup like Upstart. So I could see it keep going. And then I kind of want to go shift over to FSLR a little bit, one of their competitors. You can see their competitor kind of broke their all-time high, consolidated, and now they're kind of back on the uptrend. So both of these companies seem pretty awesome this week.
There we go. All right, another one is Apple. That one's breaking its all-time high. It's just running, Tom. Like Apple gets in like these, I guess you could say like these phases where it just goes straight up for like weeks, and it looks like it looks like we've been in one of those phases. So it's up nearly 2% today, and we're at all-time highs.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, I'll be honest, I think Apple was really lagging behind for a while. Like we were seeing Microsoft making new highs. We were seeing the SPY even make new highs, and Apple was lagging behind until last Friday when they finally broke out. But man, I hope they keep going. They have this electric vehicle news, which is great. They came out with some new chips for their self-driving car, which is supposed to be Apple's most advanced in-house technology, which is awesome to hear. Honestly, like it's really huge to make these advancements on chips that are powering these AI systems and stuff like that. I think that's amazing. And that's going to help Apple for the longer term, not just with their cars, but with everything else. Obviously, making advancements in the AI sector is always going to be huge. And talking about AI, a lot of these AI stocks like DDOG have been running up, kind of like we've been talking about, making new highs after new highs. But I'll be honest, looks like DDOG is hitting that $200 resistance, and we might see a little bit of a downtrend here.
Uh-oh, there we go. So yeah, I mean, Tom, do you have any setups you're looking at? Like, there's a couple stocks that I see that are moving, but do you see any breakouts that are currently in the works, or any patterns forming, or anything like that?
I know Nike's been in a pretty good pattern lately. I know that they're approaching their all-time highs, and their dividends coming up, but keep in mind that's not for a little while, so hopefully that doesn't affect anything yet. I feel like that they look like pretty good, like a pretty good play to maybe retest or even break out to all-time highs this week. They're only about $1 away from that all-time high, and I feel like that they could have a pretty good chance to maybe break that. I know Nike's been on a pretty big uptrend over the past few years, and they're a powerhouse. So definitely, it's hard to bet against them. And if they break 180, I feel like that could be a pretty good setup for later in the week. I would definitely throw that on the radar. And if you guys want, maybe even create an alert. I'll actually do it right now. If you're on Thinkorswim, you can just right click on the chart, go down, and then just click create alert. And then at or above, you could just make this $180 even, and then just click create, and you can see it'll create that alert there. So now if this moves up above here, I'll get an alert that Nike broke out. So then I can just switch over and trade it really fast if I want to. But I would definitely watch Nike for a breakout. They're looking pretty good. And Mike, another play that I kind of wanted to talk about that has been pretty good lately is Exxon and Mobile. And I feel like that they could end up being pretty good to the downside. Now, they had a huge down day on Friday as crude oil started to fall. And the price of crude oil has been crazy high over the past few months. And I feel like as crude oil starts to fall off a little bit, some of these oil plays might start to go down, kind of like what we're starting to see with Exxon. Now, I'm not saying to just enter puts here, but I'm saying definitely eye it up if you guys are looking at some of these oil stocks. I feel like they might end up going to the downside over the next few months if oil starts to consolidate a little bit.
Yeah. All right, we have Hunter saying DraftKings fighting for its life to stay green. I was going to say something, but I didn't want to jinx it. So it's looking good so far. Like you said, it's definitely fighting for its life, but I guess this beats whatever we've been seeing for the past month of just every day straight down. So it's looking good so far. It looks like we're having some buyers come back in, which is finally good to see, but then again, I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, me either. And looking at it on the max daily, we got really close to that $35 support. I really hope this support ends up holding up for DraftKings. It seems like in the past, we can see in the past the past couple of times that we hit it, we ended up going up pretty drastically over the next couple of months. So hopefully we see that same stuff start to happen here. We're right on a big support, and I feel like that could be the turnaround that DraftKings needs. And keep in mind, we have the NBA season just started, football just started, baseball just ended. So hopefully DraftKings gets a lot of revenue and stuff. I know their last earnings didn't go too well, but hopefully they can get some good news come out. I know, Mike, that they've been making all these awesome acquisitions and partnerships, like you said, with the Boston Bruins and all these different people, like the FaZe clan even, and their stock just isn't going anywhere. But I feel like buying it right now for the longer term is an awesome way to go. And hopefully we start to bounce off this support. I feel like if this support holds up, this might be the lowest we see DraftKings in a long time if the support ends up holding.
Hopefully, right? Hopefully, please.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right, there we go. All right, awesome. So then we have Apex saying thoughts on Plug since the market opened, and also RUN, so run, so Plug and run. So Plug is up a little bit today. It was looking good at open, but it kind of is selling off right now. I don't like what it's doing right now. The momentum is just like 50-50.
Yeah, I don't like what it's doing either. That's actually a really crazy move back down to the downside. That's a pretty bad thing to see. I was really hoping to see Plug keep going. I know that on the daily chart, they've been really starting to run, and this down day would be pretty bad if it keeps going down. So hopefully they turn back around. RUN, let's check them out today. Looks like they're moving a little bit better. They're pulling back over the past 60 seconds, but at least they're holding their ground to the upside a little bit. I feel like Plug was starting to really turn back to the downside pretty drastically. Yeah, they're actually getting pretty low now. I feel like with Plug, there's a pretty big intraday support, Mike, like right around $44 even. And it looks like we're actually about to touch that. This thing's really flying.
Good stuff. And then RUN. I just want to go back to RUN really quickly. I like this one for the long term, but Enphase is like definitely one of the leaders when it comes to solar. So maybe just take a look at Enphase if you're looking for a solar play, or maybe even like a solar ETF like TAN.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think RUN's too bad myself, but like Mike said, it's definitely going to be a lot riskier. Obviously, if you would have been buying RUN on the bottom support at like $40, I think that would have been a lot better. Right now you're kind of buying on this like $60 resistance. So it's obviously like way worse on the technical level too. So I would definitely look at the ETF TAN, but I feel like some of these stocks, Mike, like RUN and Plug and some of the others could have been good to buy if you would have been buying them at the right spots. But in these types of scenarios and in this given case, right now, I would say just wait on it a little bit. Maybe you could play a breakout with some options if it breaks up above $60. That might be a good way to go.
Definitely possible. All right, and then we have George saying ChargePoint is also up 5%. Triple top, though. Let's take a look. CHPT, triple top. Are you seeing a triple top on this one, Tom?
It's not too much of a triple top. I'm looking on the daily. There's definitely a lot of resistance, though, right here around 28.32. If I go out to like the 180-day 4-hour chart, it definitely looks a little bit more like a triple top. I will say, rather than seeing a triple top, I think today we're coming up and we're kind of retesting this double top. Now, a triple top might form if we see it come up and hit 28.70 and then come right back down. Then it will signal that there is a triple top. But I'll be honest, with the way some of these charging stocks and EV stocks have been moving, I'd be pretty careful because I feel like ChargePoint might be able to break out here. So just be careful. I don't think it's a triple top yet, but I think that could end up forming today if we see it hit this and then go down.
Alrighty. And then Johnny Leverage mentioned, or once you get done with that, Johnny Leverage mentioned Nvidia breaking out. So I know we covered this one a little bit. It's definitely pot. Oh wow, I didn't realize it was up this much, Tom. It's up nearly 5% today.
Yeah, I've been watching them a little bit in the background. Nvidia and AMD are both on fire today. They just continue to show why they're powerhouses. But yeah, Nvidia's been looking awesome. I loved how they broke up above 330. I mean, I thought that was an amazing break on Friday and after hours. And ever since we broke it, we just haven't looked back. So it's looking awesome. I love the setup on Nvidia on the daily. It's starting to really break out. Like I said earlier, I thought it was in a little bit of a bullish flag setup there, and we finally broke out. So I could see it running for a couple of days at least. And now that we have this huge move today, That's exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm glad that we saw it. And, I would honestly be a little careful with it, though. Mike, I know that we've been talking about this one being a little overextended, and I know that they're a powerhouse and they can keep just flying up for the next couple months. But in the end, I feel like they have to have some type of pullback eventually. Like, I feel like they're just not going to keep going straight up to 1,000. But hey, we've seen it before with Tesla and other stocks. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past it, but, the chances are it's not going to keep flying, at least with this type of pace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bet against it. We saw moves like UPST, Home Depot, Tesla, Nvidia, where they just keep going up and up and up, and it's just hard to bet against them.
Yeah, it is. And I'm really glad to see it breaking out here. So honestly, like what a lot of people like to do is if it's in a flag setup like this, they'll kind of measure the flagpole and then they'll try to, guess how much it can break out above it based on how big the pole was. So the pole was about 50 points from like 250 up to 300. And now we're kind of breaking out about, another 50 points. So yeah, I mean, I could see it keep going. And I'm really glad to see that the technicals lining up on Nvidia because, sometimes these stocks, when they start to run, they just start breaking out and having some crazy moves. But at least Nvidia has been kind of moving well on the technical level. And then another stock, Mike, that I wanted to kind of go back on that we talked about at the beginning was ASTR. They've actually had a pretty nice move ever since open. And, they're up around 40% now, which is pretty good.
You can't forget about NEO, Tom. They're the one that's really stealing the show.
NEO, let's see. Oh my gosh, 9% now, Mike. What is happening here? I've honestly, I've been loving NEO down here because I think it's been making some great opportunities. But man, today we're just totally coming back. I really hope that we see $50 again soon. I'll be honest with the way Lucid, Tesla, and all these other EV stocks have been going. I think NIO just needed one good piece of news so that they can start going back up. And what did they come out with today, Mike? They said they were going to start deliveries of their sedan.
Yeah, that was the only major news I was seeing.
I think that's great though, because look at how Lucid moved after they announced their deliveries.
True.
And they announced it on October 30th, and or I should say a couple days before October 30th, and they had that huge explosion. So hopefully NEO starts to have one like that too. And I'll be honest, I think they have a good chance to, Mike, don't you?
Yeah, I would agree actually, because they've just been consolidating forever now too. And what was it, last year in November and December especially, every single day NEO just exploded, and it just happened for months. So I guess you can say I guess you could say at least experienced traders were expecting a pullback, but I feel like we've been on a pullback all year.
Yeah, we really have. And I'll be honest, it's starting to look pretty good. And with this good news, I think it's just an awesome catalyst for the company as well. And, we've been seeing these catalysts play some pretty big roles lately. And one thing I just wanted to point out, Mike, really fast with NEO is that look at how NEO moved whenever they came on the market, guys. They went crazy. They started going to the upside very drastically, had some awesome moves. And then they consolidated for a couple of years as they had some production, for about a year as they had some production issues and, just the chip problems and stuff like that. I only want to point this out because I just want to keep this in mind for all the people buying Rivian right now. Rivian has been going crazy, but keep in mind, some of these stocks, they go crazy in the beginning and then they have that little rough period. And I feel like NIO just went through that little period and now they're starting to get back on the uptrend. And, they all do this. Tesla's done it. Lots of stocks have done it. Even Lucid was in that type of downtrend for almost a year straight. So I just want to point that out for everyone buying Rivian, that these stocks do go down sometimes, kind of like what we've been seeing with NEO for the past 6 or 7 months. And it doesn't mean it's a bad company. It just means they had some bad press there for a while.
Yep. Alrighty. And then we have Alex saying, does Zoom have earnings today? Yes, it does have earnings today. He said this could be big to the upside or the downside, but I really like Zoom. So, I also like Zoom. Tom has the earnings chart pulled up right now. They do report earnings after close. I will definitely be watching their earnings report. I've been watching them for, I would say, at least half the year, and they've definitely been struggling, but they had a bad outlook last earnings report, so I'm very curious to see what this quarter looks like.
Yeah, me too. And I'll be honest, I am getting pretty worried about Zoom right now. I'm not getting too worried as far as their company goes. I feel like they're an awesome company. I'm just getting so worried with how we've been seeing some of these earnings go. You go look at stocks like Chegg and stocks like PayPal and just all these other stocks that have had some bad earnings while also going down at the same time. It's just been tough. And I know that Peloton was one that I've been looking at really closely with Zoom. Like I felt like Zoom and Peloton were moving together for a while almost. And Peloton just had that bad earnings and they fell pretty drastically. I'm not saying Zoom's going to do this, but it worries me that Zoom could possibly have something like this happen. I'm definitely not going to be playing the earnings, but man, they're definitely a scary stock with the way that they're a reopening play. But, hopefully they start to talk about some, about COVID cases ramping up or something. I really hope Zoom does good, Mike. I feel like that, like you said, it's going to be a very interesting one to watch and probably my favorite one to watch this week. I know that we have a few interesting earnings like Dick's Sporting Goods and Best Buy tomorrow, but I'll be honest, I think that Zoom might be my favorite one to look at. And like I said, just be really careful with this one. I feel like it could end up going down, but I'm not trying to make everyone panic or anything, but just with the way we've been seeing a lot of stocks go down, I wouldn't put it past it.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's possible. Like for me, I'm not as worried because last quarter they kind of warned about it. They reported good earnings, but they're like, hey, next quarter it's not gonna, like we're gonna slow down a little bit. So in my opinion, I feel like it's like investors kind of already braced for this, but anything can happen with earnings.
Yeah, it can. And, I know that like some of these other companies like Peloton, for example, like I know they've been talking a lot about some bad outlooks and stuff too. And they still ended up breaking down. But I know Peloton had a lot of other issues, like people were like dying on their machines and stuff like that. So that's not good to see either. So they had some other press that was bad. I know Chegg had some weird issues too. And, I really hope that Zoom holds up. I feel like they're a good company, but it definitely worries me a little bit in the short term. And, I know that some of these reopening plays have just been a little lackluster lately. Like we go look at like American Airlines, even they've been on the downtrend. We can look at like Delta Airlines. I feel like all these need to just get a boost back up. I know that Delta and American are getting pretty close to some of these supports. Delta's actually kind of like right on this $39 support here.
No doubt. All right, and then we have Mink saying, good morning. Can you look at MU for the week? Yes, we can. Tom, I bet you wish you were still holding this one.
Yes, I do. I wish I still held it Friday for most of the move, but man, MU is on the uptrend. I'll tell you what, this one on the daily chart has been looking so good. Back here, whenever it was at the $70 support, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was awesome to buy it at 65. MU was just really lagging behind a lot of the chip stocks. We've seen Nvidia, AMD, those two started exploding. Then Qualcomm followed along, and now MU is coming back. So, it just takes a little while for that good news to kind of hit. But, these chip stocks are definitely powerhouses. And, I know lots of people were giving MU flack whenever it was at like $70 and $65. But, the chip stocks are powerhouses. They usually come back, and MU is a pretty big company. So, looking at it, they had a great earnings report last time as far as their EPS goes. But like we keep seeing, they just had a pretty bad outlook with all the chip shortages and stuff. So then they had a bad earnings that made them go down a little bit, kind of like what we're seeing with DraftKings, kind of like what we're seeing with lots of other stocks that were doing bad for a while. So, I'm glad to see them breaking out, and hopefully this just gives investors more confidence to maybe get into some of these other stocks that are low because all stocks go on pullbacks, and MU was just one of those.
There we go. All right, and then we have Spacely joining and saying Nike is breaking out. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's definitely popping up. We are still under that all-time high, right around just under 180 or so. But yeah, we're getting really, really close to like an all-time high breakout.
Yeah, we are. It could make for a pretty good play if it happens today or possibly even tomorrow. But man, I know Nike's been a powerhouse, and I'll be honest, I've been kind of waiting for Nike to slow down a little bit, but every time they have a pullback, they end up exploding right back up. Like we talk about, these powerhouses are hard to bet against. And if they break 180, I could see them having a pretty good move, just like we've been seeing lots of stocks break out and doing lately.
All right, there we go. And then we have Corbin saying, how does Snap look to you? Not bad. I mean, they are a solid company. It's not a company that I plan on holding for the long term. I just like other companies more. But I feel like for shares, it looks pretty good at this level. It's at a pretty nice, I guess you could say reduced price right now. So if you're getting shares or like anything long term, it looks pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, mine too. As long as you want like something like Mike said, long term, like don't think that buying an option that expires in like a month or two is going to be a long term, because that's that can end up getting hurt pretty bad here with Snap. But looking at it, I feel like that we had this big downtrend. We're starting to finally have another big leg down. I don't know how far this one's going to extend down to, but I feel like it's definitely good to buy on this one. I generally like to buy on these types of setups too. So hopefully we see it maybe hit one of these supports, maybe like $45 or something, and end up holding up. And I'll be honest, there's a pretty big support where we are at $50 if that can hold up too.
There we go. And then we have Kathy saying, AMD, thoughts on support and resistance, please. So, Tom, AMD is exploding. What levels do you have for us?
All right. So, as far as support with AMD, we can definitely find a nice support here. I'm definitely going to see an intraday one, like right around like 155.50. I'll go ahead and throw a line right there. But as far as the resistance goes, it's going to be very difficult because we just keep moving up to new all-time highs. So you can look at psychological levels, maybe like 165 coming up, or maybe 170. But in all reality, that the resistance is going to be very hard to gauge. I will say, though, the supports are looking pretty good to play off of. If you're on like the 1 minute chart, I thought that it was awesome how they broke out today up above like 157.50. I think that might play as a pretty good intraday support. Also, as well as maybe up here around 159. I think that might play as a good intraday support as well. I'll throw another small trend line right there. But looking at it, I think that AMD is a little overextended intraday today. I don't think they can go up too much more, but in the end, they're a powerhouse. It's hard to bet against them. I definitely not betting against them. I'm just saying an entry right now might be a little hard.
Yep, and then we're basically at all-time highs, so it's really tough to like gauge resistance right now because like 161.69 right now is the all-time high. So keep an eye on like whole and half dollar levels too. So like you can see like maybe like 165 will be a psychological resistance coming up too. So it's just something to keep in mind. But when stocks are at all-time highs, like there's definitely a lot of opportunity with it. It's different than a normal play because like the support and the resistance at least isn't as like clear cut.
Yeah, exactly. And you might think it has a lot of momentum as it breaks 162, but it might hit the resistance at like 162.50 and then have a huge crash back down to 160 or something. So it's just a little hard to see. Like Mike said, there's not too much data whenever you're at all-time highs because obviously you're just running up and you've never been there before. So it's awesome to kind of see how the market reacts though. And I feel like if you're good at scalping and you can do some quick scalps, I feel like getting in on these breakouts to all-time highs can be pretty big as long as you get in as soon as it breaks out.
Yep, there we go. And then we have Ironical saying, thoughts on Z. It's very low now. Is it a good buy for the long term? So I know that they had that home flipping disaster I guess you could say like a month ago or so. That was brutal. I mean, they're okay. Personally, I like Redfin more just for like the growth potential, but I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to get this one for the long term, I don't think it's bad, but I do feel like there are better other opportunities out there. Like many stocks, you could say Redfin, DraftKings, Corsair, and Palantir, and Unfazed, and all that. But I don't know. I just of course they're at a good level, but I know that Zillow's just getting destroyed. And even when you look at Redfin's chart, like it's just holding up so much better than Zillow's.
Yeah, it really is. And I was actually going to say that Redfin doesn't look too good in itself, but Zillow just looks terrible. So it's like, man, like I feel like Redfin would definitely be the way to go with this one. I feel like that there's some pretty big supports on Redfin coming up, Mike. Like there's a huge one here right at $40 even, and we're only like a couple dollars away from that. So hopefully something like $40 ends up holding up. I feel like Redfin could be pretty good, especially if some of these housing companies start doing a little bit better. I should say like realty companies.
Yeah, I guess say brokerage, anything with real estate, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. And there's another one I was gonna look at. I think it was XR, or no, not XRT. It was like a real estate ETF I was looking at the other day. Let me pull it up. Give me 1 second, Tom.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll just go ahead and go to the overall market really fast. And I'll tell you what, the SPY's looking pretty good today. We're making new all-time highs. Looking pretty great. We had a pretty good morning so far. It looks like the market's really reacting well to Powell staying in office, and I'm glad to see it. I think Powell's done a great job over the past couple of years, and I hope he does good. But Mike, what's that I should say Realty ETF, I guess.
Yep. So the real estate ETF is ticker symbol IYR. Basically, it's supposed to just follow like these real estate companies and just the movement with real estate. And some of their holdings are AMT, PLD, and like CCI. So those are some of the biggest holdings. So it doesn't really focus too much on companies like Zillow or Redfin or like anything like that. It's more of like AMT mainly. It's driven by
And what was the ticker one more time on the ETF?
IYR.
IYR. Okay. Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I'll be honest. It looks like it's at a nice resistance, and it looks like it could end up breaking out here pretty soon. So hopefully we see that happen. I think that would be nice. Obviously, not just for this company, but for the whole real estate sector in general. So hopefully we see it. And I know real estate's been a huge talking point over the past couple of years. Like ever since COVID happened, for some reason, it just caused this huge boom in the real estate market. And, housing prices have went up with inflation. And I feel like everything's just been going up in price lately, like even used cars. So, it's just been making these markets kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Inflation plus a combination of low rates plus like a lack of supply, like in just like the real estate market and
Lumber.
shortages of all the building materials and all that. So like with everything being said and everything happening in the world, like real estate's exploding, the stock market's exploding, cryptocurrencies are exploding. But yeah, I mean, just keep in mind that you can always find some like discounts out there for the most part. Like, of course, not every stock is rising right now, but when you have companies like Apple and Nvidia and Tesla really leading the way, they're just really putting the market on their backs, I guess you can say.
Yeah, they are. And, like you said, all three of those stocks are really having great days today. Even the banks are having a great day, like Bank of America, JP Morgan. Even though they look red on the daily candle, they're up 2%, which is nice to see. Like you said, the powerhouses are really holding up the market, which is great. And, I hope it keeps happening because, I feel like that we're getting into a little bit, maybe you'll disagree with me. I know lots of people definitely do, but I feel like we're getting into a little bit of a bubble with some of these stocks. Like, I'm not saying that the bubble's going to burst and Nvidia is just going to fall down to 200 or anything, but I feel like some of these stocks are getting pretty overextended. Like in Nvidia's case, AMD's case, even some of these bigger stocks, like like you could just say like randomly, just like Amazon or anything like that. Like I feel like some of these are just getting to some crazy valuations and some crazy levels, and we're seeing it like with even some of the EV companies like Rivian now. Like how do they even get that valuation? And I feel like some of these companies might come back down to reality a little bit. So that's all I'm saying. I feel like that they're a little overextended on the dailies. I'm not betting against them though, like we talked about earlier, but I feel like that they just are a little overextended. I don't know, Mike, like how do you feel? Like the market keeps making new highs, and I don't know, I feel like it could definitely keep going, but I feel like at some point, like Nvidia and some of these stocks have to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I agree to an extent that some of these stocks are overextended. It's just like really hard to bet against some of these companies that are really kind of like just leading the world in so many different ways. Like we look at Nvidia, we know that they are huge in like the chip space, but of course they have all of their or they have a lot of use in the artificial intelligence sector, which is set to explode and is already kind of taking over. And then on top of that, Nvidia has exposure to cryptocurrencies. And then on top of that, it has exposure to the metaverse. And then on top of that, it's basically like chips are like used in everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, I do agree. This when you say that the stock does look pretty overbought and overextended, and whenever any stock goes from 200 to 345 in what was that, like a month and a half or so, it's a pretty crazy move. And yes, it's overextended, but at the same time, I'm not going to bet against it given the industry that they're in and basically like the results they're producing.
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to show that in the past, like Nvidia, like in 2015 to 2018, they went on a huge uptrend too, and then they had some pretty bad news. They ended up coming down for a little while, and then they went back on the uptrend. And I definitely like what you said, Mike. It makes a lot of sense. And, they're a powerhouse, definitely hard to bet against them. And I honestly would trade them just for momentum plays. Like, I think it's awesome to play them for momentum plays. And I honestly am waiting for them to dip just so I can buy them for the longer term. Like I'm hoping that they have a little bit of a dip down, even just maybe to 300 or something. Like, man, I'm just looking for a good longer term entry. I know this one's been hard to enter into. Same thing with AMD. Like I've heard lots of questions from people, Mike, saying like, when's a good time to buy these? And it's gotten to the point to where it's almost like any time's a good time to buy them. It's like they're really failing to fall down. Like even whenever they consolidate, they end up just holding their ground instead of really going down. Like they've just been on some crazy uptrends this year. And like you said, the AI and all these everything that these chip stocks power are just very futuristic, and they're going to be used a lot in the future too. So it's definitely a cool thing to see. And I liked how you pointed this out to me a while ago, Mike, is that a lot of people don't even realize how much artificial intelligence is already implemented. Like I know lots of people have like their refrigerators and stuff like that, and people don't even know that their refrigerators are ran on AI systems and different stuff. So there's definitely AIs used in so many more things, I think, than people even realize.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically in everything. Of course, if you have like an old school fridge, then it's not using AI,
Yeah.
but now there's like smart everything. So it's just all over, like whether, of course, anything on your phone, but, you look at Tesla's using AI to drive themselves, and it's crazy how the world has changed over what the past like 2 years, especially. It's insane. So, like chip stocks are definitely like on the forefront of that like innovation. So companies like Nvidia, AMD, I mean, basically anything with chips. But I would say Nvidia is definitely leading the way.
Yeah, definitely. I did want to talk about Intel really quick. I know that they're really lagging behind in the chip industry, but I will say I've seen lots of cool I should say at least research and development that Intel's been doing. I know Nvidia and AMD, they make graphics cards. I know AMD makes processors and graphics cards, but in the end, Intel's actually been researching their own graphics cards, and they're also researching newer processors that they're coming out with. So maybe this one could be a pretty good dip buy. I know everyone hates buying up at the top, so if you want to maybe get into a stock for the longer term, maybe Intel would be one. Keep in mind they're going to be pretty risky. They've had a lot of delays and stuff like that in this development, so that could definitely cause some problems. But I feel like that as they start to come out with their graphics cards or their graphical processing units, I feel like that they could end up doing pretty good in the longer term. But keep in mind, this one's going to probably be a couple years before it starts moving pretty well. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to throw it out there. It is lower than a lot of the other chip stocks. Another one that is a little lower right now is MU, but man, they're on fire today, up 5% again. Like they're honestly like, I was loving them at $70, but now they're starting to get a little high again, kind of like Nvidia and AMD.
There we go. All right, and then we have Head saying thoughts on Qualcomm for the next 2 weeks. Well, these chip stocks are exploding, but I would say personally, Qualcomm is one of the most overextended chip stocks on the market right now, in my opinion. It went from 122 up to like 189 in what, like a month or so. So it can continue to run up, but it's just like I don't know. I think it'd be pretty tough.
Yeah, I do too. So let's see. That was like ever since like right around like November, we'll just say at the beginning of November, we pretty much have went up around 35%. Let's go see like NVDA since like the beginning of November. They're up like 32%. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Qualcomm could definitely slow down as well. Hopefully it doesn't do like a UPST or something and just keep going. Like I could see it possibly doing that. I think it also will depend on how Nvidia and AMD do. Like if Nvidia keeps having these awesome days like they're having today, and AMD keeps running as well, I think Qualcomm could also keep going up. But I'm more with Mike. I think that for the next week, I think that they're a little bit overextended in my opinion. If they can break out above this high right here of 188.72, I think it might be a pretty good run maybe for a day or two. But I would definitely look more for something. I'm not looking forward to the downside, but I would definitely maybe just look at not playing this one. There's lots of other plays out there. And I feel like even like Nvidia, like I feel like even that one's pretty overextended. Even AMD. I'm not saying that they're all going to pull back right away, but I feel like though that they are all getting a little bit overextended. Even Nvidia, I know you said Qualcomm was the most, and they obviously are, but I think Nvidia is also a little bit. Same thing with all of them, even AMD. A little bit anyways.
Like another thing to keep in mind is, yeah, let's say we say AMD and Nvidia and Qualcomm are overextended, they can keep running up. Like it's no
Oh
one
yeah.
knows the top to them, but the question is it worth the risk? And when they are overextended like this, it's probably not worth the risk. Like if we look at Nvidia, I know with I guess I could say 95% certainty that most retail or a good percentage of retail traders, like even on Wall Street bets and all that, are looking at Nvidia right now and saying, wow, it went from 200 up to 345 in like a month or so. And then now it's up 4%. I'm going to buy calls on it. And while it can continue to run up, it's probably not worth the risk. Like, an at the money call for Nvidia right now will cost you around $710. That expires this week. And let's keep in mind that there's no trading on Thursday and it's
Wow.
a half day on Friday. So it's like that's not even like the full value of that option. So that's number one. So then the retail traders will probably go out to maybe like the 360 strike calls for the week that will cost $220. So it's like your break even price isn't until 362. It's just like it's in my opinion, it's not a situation that will win over the long term. IV is pretty high right now too, so it's like it can keep going up. Like it's definitely possible for Nvidia to go up to 355 this week or 370. It's possible, but it's really just not worth the risk.
Yeah, it's not. And I feel like that on some of these breakout plays, like sometimes you could like maybe play like a quick breakout. Like I feel like with Nvidia, like it was awesome if you would have played maybe like the breakout like last Friday, for example, as it broke out up above like 327. I think that could have been like a pretty good like little intraday play right there. Or maybe even like today, if you see it break the high of day, maybe that could be a pretty good time to get in for a quick scalp or something like that. But I'm kind of with Mike. It's almost not even worth the risk with some of these stocks. And I feel like that it was worth the risk at one time though. Like if you look at Nvidia as it broke this all-time high here around $230, as we started to break it to the upside, we started moving pretty drastically. Like I feel like that could have been a good entry right there. There was also a pretty good entry as we broke out up above 210 a couple months before that. A good entry right there for a few days. And I just feel like right now we're just not at the best spot for a good entry. Obviously there's always a better spot usually, but in the end, I feel like that they're just a little high right now. And I feel like some stocks are just at better spots. Like we can go look at like CRSR, which is down here by support, or even just like some of these other stocks running. Like we could go look at like Apple, for example. They just started to break out to their all-time high, and they're starting to have some pretty nice explosive moves. If you would have gotten in right as they started the breakout, it could have been pretty good. But I would definitely try to eye up those entries right on the breakouts rather than getting in after the breakouts. And Mike, I love how you brought up everyone wants to buy calls like whenever these stocks are at new all-time highs. But it's pretty like you said, it's almost not worth the risk sometimes.
And then even Corbin just said, he says it doesn't even pay to buy puts at this point either. And that's another good point because IV it's not sky high right now, but it's still relatively high, like for most of the year IV was just lingering between I guess you can say like 37 and I guess maybe 50, and right now it's at 51. So it's like even if you buy puts, if you get the direction correctly, it'll still be really hard to make money. And let me actually take a look at the chain really quickly. The puts are basically more expensive than the calls right now. So, or at least, yeah. So, just long story short, in situations like this, you have to be very strategic with how you play it. If you like Nvidia for the long term, I guess it doesn't hurt to dollar cost average and get shares if you wanted to right now. But with options, it's a pretty dangerous game at this point, in my opinion. And then with the next comment, we have Sean asking about OXY for a potential swing play. So OXY, looks like this one is coming back a little bit. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I will say the thing that worries me a little bit is we have crude oil has been a little crazy lately. So I feel like Oxy is also going to be a pretty tough one to play. I feel like it is bouncing off support pretty well. Now, the main thing that Oxy's moving with, obviously, is going to be crude oil futures, which is slash CL. So Oxy's been dipping back down over the past few days. And we can see on my chart here that crude oil has also been dipping down over the past couple of days. And I feel like that if we see crude oil bounce off of this $75 support and end up going right back up, I think then that Oxy could obviously have a pretty good chance to move back to the upside. But if we see crude oil fall below the $75 support, and if they fall below it pretty drastically, I feel like Oxy is then going to also fall down below their support. Now, they don't know, they're not always 100% correlated. So don't look at it as a 100% thing. But as we can see, they generally move the same. So if you see crude oil fall below 75, I think Oxy would be a bad play to the downside. But if we see slash CL start really holding up right here and starting to rise, I think it could be a good play back to the upside for Oxy, at least for a couple of days. But, in the end, I would be really careful with some of these oil plays. Oil is pulling back right now from 85 back down to 75, which is a pretty healthy pullback. But keep in mind, oil's been on a huge uptrend this year. And if we fall below 75, Oxy and some of these other stocks like Exxon and Mobile are probably going to get hurt pretty bad.
All right. Hunter said Square's getting beaten down. Yeah, I saw that one. It's just getting destroyed pretty badly. Thinking about maybe selling some puts on this one, but I think we're a little bit early still. So I'll definitely put it on my watch list, but I'm not going to make a move yet.
Yeah, I think it's funny how Square's going down, and man, PayPal's been flying down too, and Visa and MasterCard and all of them. Visa had that bad news with Amazon stopping their payments from the UK. That was some pretty harsh news from them. And man, we have MasterCard going down too. It's not good for these credit card companies lately. And I'll tell you what was the ticker he said? We have PayPal, we have
Square. Square is what Hunter
Square,
mentioned.
that's right, Square. Yeah, Square to the downside, definitely not looking good. It's such a scary setup. They're getting to some of these big supports though, like $200 even and stuff like that. I really hope they end up holding up. And, I hope they don't end up pulling like a Peloton or something and starting to break those supports. But I think Square might hold up. I think they're a pretty solid company, Mike. And, we've been talking about them a lot over the past couple of weeks and over the past couple of years. And I feel like they could end up being pretty good. They're just in a little bit of a downtrend with the other credit card companies. And, we honestly should have seen this coming with how PayPal and stuff has been going down. It was a little bit of a foreshadow there.
Yep. All right. And then we have Corbin asking about Disney. This one's not looking too bad. The earnings report was definitely disappointing, but I still really like this one for the long term.
Me too. And I'm really praying that this 150 support holds up. I think Disney's great, Mike. And, we've been talking about it nonstop for the past 6 months. So I hope that they end up going up as well. I think the 150 support's awesome. Like I've been saying a little bit on some of the videos and stuff, there is a little bit of a gap here between 136 and 126, on the daily chart. So hopefully we don't go down and fill that gap like we filled this one. I hope that we bounce off of 150 and go back up, because if we fall down that drastically, it would worry me pretty bad.
All righty. And then George was mentioning Teladoc at 110. Yeah, it's definitely having a pretty harsh pullback, Tom. They had that same pattern that they did last time with their earnings release.
Wow. I mean, man, I thought that with that earnings, with the way they came back a few weeks ago, Mike, I thought maybe they would start to go back up, but wow, they really fell off to the downside. They ended up breaking that support pretty bad. And wow, I mean, this just goes to show that a lot of these stocks that are at supports right now, you just have to be really careful with some of them. I know that CRSR and some of them are starting to really straddle these supports, and they might go below them for a little while. So it's going to get tough with some of these, we might see Zoom fall below it. We might see CRSR fall below it. There's a lot of stocks right now at these supports, and they might end up breaking it for the short term. So just be braced for a little bit of volatility here. These growth stocks are in some pretty crazy phases and at some pretty crazy areas right now. So I really would definitely be careful for the next few days. I feel like lots of other stocks are definitely at that same type of price point as well.
Sounds good. And then we have David saying, good morning, everyone. What's up with Baba? Alibaba. Yeah, this one's selling off. Looks like a earnings continuation play. It's looking pretty tough.
Man, not good, actually. Not all-time lows, but man, we broke that low of a few months ago around 138. Definitely not good here for these China stocks in the short term. I know that I've been seeing all types of news coming out of China lately, like China and Taiwan, U.S.-China relations, stuff with Hong Kong. I've just been seeing all types of stuff. So hopefully Baba can get back up there. But man, this was definitely a bad move on earnings, and definitely going to put a damper in Charlie Munger's position. That's for sure.
Yep. All right, Tom. Well, do you have any last minute stocks or anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
I was really loving Tesla this morning. I was looking at them on the 5 minute chart. They're getting back up towards these all time highs. It looks like a pretty good momentum play, at least for this week. I feel like if they could break out above 1195 today, they could have a pretty good run. It looks like they are double topping intraday a little bit up here. So I'm definitely watching Tesla. I think ASTR is going to be very interesting to watch as well. I think some of these space stocks like ASTR and RKLB, which is Rocket Lab, they're actually in a pretty good setup too. I think they're looking great. Everyone likes to talk about SPCE and stuff like that. And I'm so glad to see more space companies like RKLB and ASTR coming onto the market. I think that these companies are a lot better. They create rockets and stuff like that rather than just being space tourism. And I'm glad to see them starting to get some good news. So definitely watch ASTR with that successful launch. They could definitely have some good momentum for the next few days. And I just wanted to say one more thing before I go. JP Morgan and the banks are up and Powell is staying in office. Just wanted to remind everyone that I was pretty happy to hear the news. Powell's done a great job the past year. He's been keeping the markets propped up pretty well, I'd say. The SPY just keeps making new highs, and I'm really glad to see Big Daddy staying in.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. We have a lot of stocks moving. The chip stocks are exploding, and we are seeing a good amount of volatility. So thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.